there's got to be a cheerleader. Somebody's got to, lead the effort. And you're going to also find the opposite is there too. Well, I don't know how to best say this. We call them cave dwellers. People that don't want to come out of the cave at all, say you'll never improve things. And you have to start to just kind of win them over by showing them, here's what we can do. And you have to start with data in a way. You can't improve a process if you can't measure it, right? So you got to be able to track performance. You have to have a baseline and then make some changes and go, okay, yeah, I see with data that our setup time is down. We're more efficient. Uh, Downtime overall on a screen printing press is down. Well, what did we do? And make those just small incremental improvements, and everybody starts to see it and they feel it and go, yeah, let me keep doing this.
Do you feel like you started that culture, Farrag, or is like where do you
Well,
feel like you're at?
my problem right now is I'm very torn in several different places because we're scaling sales as hard as we can, and then I go down into production and I've got 2 days with them, and then I'm back up, and then I'm back down, and so like I'm trying to make sure we have the leadership team in place to really implement it, and that's what we're struggling with right now, is finding the middle managers that I can sit in a boardroom with and say like, what are the what are the changes that we made last week, and what are we going to do this? Because it's like you're almost gamifying getting better. It's like it's got to be not a contest, right? But like this 1% improvement every single day. I guess like Kevin, if a shop, like they're going to be hearing this and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I need this. Like what advice do you have for the shop that feels helpless of like, where do I even start? How do I even, my employees can barely show up to work, whatever. I can't find employees. Like, what advice do you have for those shops and those maybe one or two auto shops?
Yeah, that is one of the biggest problems I know that Eric's running into. Where do I find employees that are either talented or at least know the screen printing business? And it's very difficult. What you have to do is at least find employees that are excited about learning, and then finding the leaders. So it does become very difficult to find those people, but you always want to try to instill this idea of, at least that's what I've tried to do, is I can do my job better. I can do it simpler. And you have to have leaders. I mean, Eric's struggling with that right now. How do we get our production manager really focused on leading the whole effort? How do we get the production coordinators um, in place so that they're bringing the next job to the press so that our press operators can just print the shirts? And then how do you start to cross train them? So you have to have that clear setup, um, that kind of organization, uh, discipline, and skills in place. And I think, Stephen, sounds like that's where you're kind of working towards as well.
Yeah, I think the struggle that I have is like there's too many people in our shop that are multitaskers. Like, the person that burned the screens might be the person that's doing this, and like that person might be doing this and this. And so sometimes it feels tough to try to like create those very narrow channels, but then you're like, oh, can you go heat seal that real quick and cut vinyl and do this? I don't know. I don't know, Kevin, if that's it at Night Owl, if there's a lot of, or if maybe you've seen the progression from multitaskers to like niche specific positions.
Yeah, we're trying to move in that way because multitasking is a great thought, uh, but let's be honest. I mean, it's better to do one task really well than a whole bunch of tasks kind of, you know, half-assed, if you would. And so we're trying to get them to have very clear roles and responsibilities. And it's another fine line between, right, I can't hire everybody that I possibly need. How do I afford that based on my current revenue streams? Uh, the ideal would be you have all these people in place, but you may not be a small shop may not be able to handle that. So you have to have multitasking, but you have to do it, very efficiently as best as you can.
So where do you start? So you've got, let's say, you've got a motivated production manager, somebody to champion it. That's clearly key number one. Somebody has to really push it forward. I kind of wonder, is there a way financially to do it? But I don't know if you can
Well,
actually
let me ask
measure
you
it.
this. Can a shop owner champion it, or do you think it needs to be like one of your employees championing it?
I think, like for you, Stephen, as an example, you have to say to your team, I think this is a good business strategy. We're going to try it, and I'm going to pass that on to one individual who's going to champion it. Maybe he's your production manager, or in Eric's case, we started with our fulfillment operation. We worked there, but that somebody other than you has to be the person really driving it. You're the guy, you're the leader, says, this is our business strategy. I see the value in it. Joe, go make it work. And then he's got to decide, where do I think I can make the biggest impact? Who on my team is excited about doing this? And then let's try. There's a couple of approaches that we've used, and they're both different. One is where you find a problem, you get the people together, and you solve the whole thing and implement it. And that takes some time and effort. You can't just solve it typically in a day. Um, because the other thing I preach is, if you know the answer, you should just do it, implement it, right? You don't need to have a big, long Six Sigma project to figure out the solution. But the problems that are more difficult, you want to take a little bit of time. But the other thing you can do is make a change and see what happens. That was positive. Let me make it a little more change. When we call that kind of an agile approach, we make small incremental improvements. And if you fail on one, you haven't lost a great deal. But you've been able to try to motivate the people into, I'm empowered to make changes and to do things better.